So welcome Ivy and Janaya to this, don't know what you'd call it really, three-hander conversation about salons, about your work, Ivy, and about the exhibition that we have here, which features your film Hair Salon from 2022. Ivy is a Ugandan-born artist. Ivy, would you rather I call you by your full name?
Just Ivy would be great.
Ivy is a Ugandan-born artist raised in Belfast, and I've just read you currently live and work in Liverpool.
Yeah, so I've just recently moved, but I've worked in Liverpool, lived in Liverpool for over 10 years, just moved.
Love it. We love people coming and living in Liverpool. Her works frequently employ the theme of collective memory, inspired by culture and tradition, and explore a variety of media, including wood, metal, sound, and video. Ivy's upbringing allowed her to explore ideas around migration, identity construction, and symbolism, which developed her own personal philosophy. Because of the duality of this diasporic selfhood, she's found herself in a condition of persistent hybridity, a constant oscillation between cultures, regions, and identities. And I believe that your work is quite interested in bodies and space, and it'd be really interesting to hear that in the context of the salon. Janaya Pickett is a historian, writer, archive specialist, archivist, and researcher. Currently, research associate at Liverpool University. That's right, is it? Um, yes, at Liverpool. I recently completed MA, explored the experience of Black women and girls in the city or in the UK, in the city, in the whole of the UK since World War Two.
Yeah, yeah. So between the 1940s and 70s, mainly Liverpool, but I did touch on Black women in other cities as well.
Fantastic. She's also an expert on the Liverpool-born radical teacher and political activist Dorothy Coulier,
Mhm.
and a leader of walking tours of the city, exploring stories and histories, especially those connected to colonialism, slavery, and the Black Liverpool experience. My name is Laura Yates. I'm the head of participation at the Bluecoat. I'm a socially engaged practitioner, producer, and writer. I was raised in Liverpool in a hairdressing shop in the West Derby area, and it was called Verita, which is an amalgamation of my mum's name, Valerie, and her sister Rita, who ran the shop from the 1960s until the 2000s. So a very long, and my auntie was a hairdresser before that in the inner city. So we have almost probably 100 years of hairdressing in the family. We're also a Danish family, so um, there is some diasporic kind of displacement going on there too, an Irish Danish family. So we're here today to explore Ivy's work, Hair Shop, which from 2022 together, which is currently on display in Gallery 1 at the Bluecoat as part of the Just Browsing exhibition until April the 12th. Thank you so much, Ivy and Janaya, for agreeing to have this chat with me today. Um, First off, Ivy, it'd be really wonderful to hear more about you, your practice, and what inspires you, and what you learned about hairdressing salons from making this work.
Okay, I don't need to go through the whole spiel of where I'm from, I guess, because you've been able to
And
touch
tell us
upon that.
again, though, if you want to.
Oh, I might do. So yeah, I was born in Uganda, in Kampala, the kind of main city, and then my family migrated over to Belfast. So I grew up in Ireland, South Belfast, which is Northern Ireland, really. So I grew up in Northern Ireland and basically absolutely loved my upbringing, although it was very difficult. Being, one of the first kind of Black families within the community at the time. Um, it was quite interesting. I had, for instance, went to kind of a full Catholic Irish speaking school, primary school, and then through my kind of older kind of years, high school, went to the first integrated school in Northern Ireland, which was really difficult. Um, Again, first integrated school, I mean, in terms of sectarianism, Catholic and Protestant. Again, being one of the first black families to have went to that school. So with all of that kind of you know going on, I really kind of wanted to break away from let's say Northern Ireland and kind of move to a kind of city at the time where I thought was a little bit more kind of integrated, I guess a lot more integrated. You know, it came to a point where I felt like things weren't moving. Looks really different now, but moved to Liverpool to basically do an undergraduate at Liverpool Hope University. 3 years, which I did, and absolutely fell in love with Liverpool, so decided to stay. Um, and
Mm.
again, with kind of my upbringing, I got really interested in just hearing people's stories, really. A lot of my work is quite collaboratorial, so I think how I use materials talks a little bit about, those stories, but then the spaces that I'm within and how they hold kind of memory, as well as like whether I can translate that through objects and then, creating those environments just based from those conversations. If I go a little bit backwards again, when I was in Belfast, my mum worked for a organization called NICEN, NICROSS and NICEN, which was a kind of immigration center. And again, from that, when we were really young, we would be in the office with her. She had no one else to kind of mind us she was a single mother at the time. And again, you'd meet a world of amazing people. You'd hear a lot of really interesting stories and stories I felt like, needed to be shared. And that's kind of what started my interest. Laura, did you want me to talk a little bit more about the exhibition or? Yeah, so the hair shop kind of came around kind of early, just after COVID time, really. Uh, we were all kind of locked away. But I was living at my own at the time in Everton. And I found it really difficult as my sister, I have a twin sister called Arita. So I find it
Mhm.
really interesting. Yeah. So she lived in Kensington at the time, and I moved in with her. And we both ended up meeting a woman called Franca, who kind of became our motherly like figure at the time. We didn't know anyone in Kensington. Although I'd lived in Liverpool a little bit longer than my sister had, I'd not really branched out and kind of spoke to anyone within the community. So I remember one time just going on our kind of daily walks. I went into her shop and I asked her like if they had she knew anywhere that sold like plantain. Um, and that kind of made me think about a woman, my auntie called Marie. She's not blood related, but she is my auntie.
Mm.
Where we'd be in there being minded by her whilst my mum was at university or working. And people would come in again and ask her, "Oh, do you know where the nearest shop is where I can get, maize or again plantain or any kind of culturally significant food?" Um, or it could be again a tire, whatever it was. And she just kind of reminded me of that kind of well, one of the pillars within my own kind of community and my own family. So yeah, me and my sister would visit her all the time, and we would just have conversations, and we wanted to know a little bit more about her journey. Um, and again, it was kind of she spoke about moving from Nigeria to Liverpool, and I believe it was like in the 1980s, if I'm being correct, around 1980s. And again, by herself, which was really, really difficult. She left her children and she left her husband. And again, we got into the discussion about, moving somewhere and not having a community. And as a woman trying to find, someone to even just do your hair, it's difficult. She spoke about having her braids in her hair for over 6 months at a time, when she had just moved here. And she eventually found somewhere but in London, not in Liverpool. So it was this idea of like having to actually again travel to someone in order to do that. So she wanted to be that person for her community that she had built up at the time in Liverpool. And again, I just felt like her story as well as Marie's kind of intertwined a little bit. There's a lot of similarities in terms of the environment and this idea around creating a safe space for individuals that I again just really stuck to really. So her experiences really kind of resonated with me at the time. But I wanted to kind of again dig a little bit deeper and see if any other kind of individuals faced similar things, or if it was just, for instance, Belfast and Liverpool. Again, travelled out to Manchester. And this wasn't by coincidence. I actually went and met a young woman called Joyce, who owns Self-Identity Hair. But it was interesting because she was a remote hairstylist. And again, around she's just, I think, in early 30s. But she shared a shop with her mother, who's called Victoria. So Vicky's Hair and I'd say beauty salon, but she's changed it to attire.
Mm.
But that's on Stockport Road in Manchester. And I just again really loved the idea of the kind of two generations coming together and working within that space to fight for the space or the shop to stay in that space. Her mum spoke about seeing other businesses alongside her come and go for several years. That place has been open for over 20 years. And it's again, that idea of them actually working together to educate, but also be a space where people could gather, whether it's talking about politics every day. Again, this idea of educating individuals that I really, really kind of became like engrossed in, really. I loved it. Um, I think for myself as well, I really wasn't clued up on hair whatsoever. So a part of it for me was also just being really inquisitive and wanting to be a sponge. But then on the other side, just wanting to share these incredible stories, these amazing pillars within our community, wherever that community is.
Yeah.
That's what I really wanted to do.
And Ivy, the film, the way you've shot the film, stylistically, would that be the right word?
Yeah,
It's black and white, isn't it? Mostly black and white. And sometimes you zoom in on trees and things like that. Would you say a little bit about, because it's an artwork rather than a
yeah,
documentary film, isn't it? Would you say a little bit about how that comes to you as an artist? Like, because I noticed.
definitely. Yeah. So I guess with video, I've always used video, but snippets or really short kind of clips that I've edited together throughout all my installations, but more sculptural installations. Whereas with this, the hair shop, I wanted to focus on the space, I guess, the space, the environment that you're in. But with the video, I really wanted to focus on, and again, I think it's being an artist that predominantly works with sculpture, it's you're constantly looking at the details or things that people wouldn't normally want to focus on, I guess, in terms of material, whether it's surface texture or whether, it could be anything really. But I really wanted to focus on like key aspects. So whether it was like the name of the road that the shop belonged to, or whether it was the sounds I would hear whilst walking to these spaces, or the people that you'd listen to, or the conversations that would be held, again, whilst you're within these spaces. So a part of like I think a really good example was like the kind of start into the film. That was that the sound element anyway, from that it was really choppy. But that was the kind of idea. It's the fact that whenever you're within these spaces, um, well, the spaces that I was in. So stop the Vicky's Hair and Beauty Shop, which was on Stockport Road, quite busy, a busy road. Marie's hair shop that's on the Ormer Road, another busy main road that leads you to the city centre in Belfast. You're hearing buses, you're hearing sirens, you might hear train station. You might hear people laughing, or whether they're within themselves or they've had a little bit of a drink. You hear these interactions and like loud laughter, or again, it could be a dryer in the background. I really just wanted to kind of encapsulate all of that. Um, but if you could also look into my mind, that's just, I'm always just constantly, I can't switch off. And that's how that's what was in my mind whenever I was kind of thinking about how I wanted to capture it, I guess. Um, but it is quite, I feel choppy. There's never a regular day at the salon, I don't think. You could be in there with, your hair being dried under a dryer. The next minute, someone's coming in to ask for something, or an auntie's come in and they're having a conversation about yesterday when they went out, or it's a kid that's crying in the back front. Like, there's just never a normal day. And that's what I really wanted to kind of portray a little bit. I tried to. But then there was moments of just like peace, and a bit of stillness with like the park and walking through that near Stockport Road. And whether it was like walking our dog, me and my partner's dog. Again, there was like moments of just like time to kind of reflect. But I think those were time. I think I wanted to add that time in there, to kind of allow people to get their heads around the madness a little bit and the chaos. Um, but it was incredible. I mean, I asked one of my aunts back home in Uganda. You'd see towards the end, you see a small kid that really just doesn't want to get their hair blow dried. But that's an actual 2020. It was in 2025 that I got that. I directed that shot, where that was captured just last year. Nothing has changed from whenever my mum used to go to that salon in Kampala. And to me, it just blew my mind. But yeah, I think I captured it in that way because I wanted to portray the environment mostly than anything else, really. I hope that makes sense.
Yes,
I'm
it
just in my
does.
head at the minute.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah,
Actually, I'm just asking you quite a abstract question, aren't I? There, it's just something I noticed. The room
yeah,
itself is laid out with hair and mirrors, and people have been
Hmm.
touching the hair, touching the hair. Did you have
Hmm.
something you wanted to come in with, Janaya, then?
yeah. No, I was just gonna say, yeah, a couple of things you mentioned, and even talking about your kind of upbringing with your mum and being in an office, and then you're talking about that the salon is like not a still space. And I remember that too, that kind of feeling of going to a salon and people just popping in, that knew the hairdresser, and they would bring the kids in, and it would be like, such and such's little boy, oh, haven't you grown, that type of thing. And
Yeah.
made me think of like of them as like businesses, but because they're run by women and by mothers, they become this like other type of space. That's like it's like a family space and a living space. Whereas with
Mm.
other professions, you wouldn't get that, because it's kind of self-run. You do have the opportunity to have your kids there, or
Yeah.
people popping in and out. It's a different um, environment for a business than something else where you just go to work. You clock in, you clock back out, and you have your work life and your home life. But with sort of self-run businesses, I think especially yeah, salons, that's what I've always found. It really is like a community around the shop, isn't it? And people kind of grow up there. I
Hmm.
mentioned to Laura before, there's my mother-in-law goes to a salon that so the hairdresser, her hair was done by her mum, and it's one of those salons that's been in the community for generations. She knows all about where, their kids are going to university and such is doing this. And yeah, it struck me when you were saying that as well about people coming in and out. It's like a matriarchal type of space, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I got that from the film most definitely, especially that the young woman who was talking about her mum and how she kind of transformed the business. You got that sense that she'd really
Mm.
sort of taken on those skills and had adapted them to modern technologies and was doing, different things. And yeah, yeah, it
It's
was really interesting.
Thank you. And I really loved what you said there about like, Joyce who kind of came in and took over, but the exact same thing happened with Marie, and I didn't really get to capture Risa at all, but that's Marie's daughter. And she's now, so Marie's shop that was on the Armour Road is now closed down, but that's up 2026. And now it actually it exists within the city centre in Belfast. And again, I'm 28, but within my 28 years, I've never came across a kind of black owned hair shop at all within anywhere near the city centre in Belfast. So that was a massive thing. I mean, they had a massive opening for it. And it was again just so emotional. Like you say, we grew up within that community, within that shop, all of us. Um, so that was an incredible thing to watch her daughter now take over and it now be Carissa's hair shop instead of Marie's. But it was an opportunity for her to then again like retire her mother and pass that on, hopefully then to the next.
Mm.
But I just yeah, they're just incredible people. But it's I was talking to my sister just earlier today. That's who I was with. And we kind of talk about this idea of these spaces being like safe spaces, but no one ever also kind of thinks about them in this kind of like institutional head. Like they are a space where like you hold a lot of memory. So it's like this idea of like archives. But also there's a lot of shared experiences and how that's actually quite similar to how, work could be presented in a gallery or a museum. You share knowledge, Um, and that's why, I mean, when Adam kind of came and, asked me to show this at the Bluecoat, I was blown away because I just thought, what an incredible thing for again, these women's stories. I say women, there was one amazing gentleman that was also part of the film.
Yeah.
But again, I just thought it was an incredible opportunity to again house that kind of collective archive at the Bluecoat.
Mm.
It's yeah,
Mm.
it's I'm still kind of like tweaking over a little bit.
Yeah.
But it was
Yeah,
amazing.
the guy you mentioned was that Citrus, what
Yeah,
was it called? Citrus, in St. John's Market. But
yeah.
yeah, it was interesting because the little bit that was on your website, he talked about it very much as a business, didn't he? And how like he was a taxi driver first, and
Mhm.
work, and having kids, and yeah, the way he sort of approached how he spoke about it, I thought was differently was yeah, it was very much business minded, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Whereas the young hairdresser was all about community and yeah, yeah, I thought that was interesting, the difference.
Mhm.
Yeah, do you know what? It was really interesting shooting it as well because you can't come again when you're having these really open and intimate, conversations. You can't come to it with like a preconceived kind of idea or questioning. So I want you to talk about this and this and this. And I thought that was really difficult because I've never really worked in that way before. I've just shot, you know, a video where I've looked at like a mood board of what I want pretty much shot and I've done it. But this was really kind of like daunting a little bit because I had to let go. But just after shooting, he was the last kind of individual I spoke to. And just from going from these ladies that were talking about it in a more kind of community way, like you said, Janaya, whereas he was, yeah, quite business savvy. I mean, he's an incredible guy if you ever get to speak to him. But I just thought again, his story was interesting because he started off in the St. John's Market. Um, again, I'd kind of moved a little bit away from Liverpool, um, in terms of like going into the city centre as much. I kind of kept to like Everton, and also like Kensington. But I'm not too sure around the specific time. I don't know if you guys could let me know, were the markets actually closed? So when they stopped allowing people within, do you know, for instance, where you go get your council tax bill looked at, and they closed that down, and he'd again built his shop just from a simple stall within the market.
Mm.
And again, you don't see his wife because she didn't want to be on screen, and that's completely fine. But the conversations I had with her, it seemed like it was just it was a woman that was also holding the house down whilst he wanted again to go and build this business, and which he did really successfully. Um, and I think again, there's beauty in that, these kind of pillars within all our lives, women that are able to do this. It's
Yeah.
just brilliant.
Mm.
I didn't know they'd taken the shops out of St. John's. To be honest, it's ages since I went in there.
It's the actual, so there's the shops in like the precinct, isn't there? And then
Yeah,
there's the actual market. Do you remember, Laura, with the stalls in? It wasn't that long ago. I think it was only like maybe like 3 years ago when they closed the market. But I remember reading that it was really sudden, that they closed it. Yeah, and didn't sort of give people a chance to, yeah, it was just very sudden. They closed it down. But I didn't know what he said when he was talking, that he had to bring stuff out of the market because, I think by that time with like high street stores and, things like that, and possibly with an increase of places that you could go to get black hair products. I mean, you can go into Boots now,
yeah,
can't you, and get your hair creams and things. But yeah, I think by sort of 2000s on, the market itself had dwindled. People weren't shopping there. You probably had like your really loyal, market people. But yeah, I think with the development of Liverpool One, and many other places that you can go to get your food and your clothes, yeah, it just sort of dwindled. But it was a
yeah,
shame how they did it. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a shame. Um, it's ages since I've been in there, but it was a very strange place, even when it was fully occupied. I thought it was very weird in there, but he obviously smashed it, didn't he? Um,
absolutely. You
I
see him all the time though, and for instance, like he gets on really well with kind of like younger generations. Seen some of their like TikToks and like Instagram videos, and he's just marketing all this. It's pretty savvy.
he's a true entrepreneur, isn't he?
Yeah.
He saw a gap in the market. I was just thinking when you were talking, because sometimes Janaya and I talk about like the heritage of hairdressing in the city, but we often talk about the heritage because obviously I've got this ancestral, whatever you want to call it, I've got this family link to hairdressing. And you know what? Arita and Verita are very close together, aren't they? And Kensington is where my auntie and my mum grew up. And my auntie's original shop was in Kensington. So that is wild, isn't it? It was above a sweet shop, and people used to pay on a tonney, like you'd pay week on week. So the women would
Mm.
come and pay a fiver a week, and by week 10 they could have a perm or whatever.
Oh wow, I love that.
Yeah. And Rita, my auntie, who was the original hairdresser, she talked to me about tinting hair, dyeing hair, because before the 50s, it was blue rinse, or 60s, it was just blue rinse. Didn't really have many colours. It was just blue rinses and perms that were done with electricity. So you'd sit on a rubber mat and get electricity um, pass through your hair. And I was also thinking when you were both talking that this is a very interesting example, isn't it, of women in business, and one of the places that women could make their own livings. going way, way back. Um, and I was also thinking about all the different salons, Janaya, we've talked about that we were aware of, especially in South Liverpool, because there wasn't a lot of, there was really only, I mean, I'd never heard of Franca until I saw her in your film, but I knew of
Mhm.
Ebony's. Was it called
Yeah.
Ebony, Janaya? Is
Yeah,
it still there?
yeah. I think it is still there, yeah. So that was I think because she does mention that she was the second
Yeah,
hairdresser. I think Ebony's was the first because I
Yeah.
remember going to Ebony's to get a perm actually in like it would have been like the mid 80s. So
Mm,
basically I think because my hair was like frizzy and not curly, it was like in between. My
mm,
parents thought it would be a good idea to get me a perm. I was about 6 probably, but we went to Ebony's. But yeah, there's an interesting on the Liverpool Record Office website. They've got like a selection of oral history interviews. Um, I think it's called like Africans on Merseyside or something, where they've basically interviewed a load of elders, and one
mm,
of them, a name escapes me, but is the woman who set up Ebony's. So she talks a bit about that, and exactly the same as the woman with was it New Image? Was the hair
New image
salon?
hair. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was the same sort of thing, that there was nowhere to get your hair done, and yeah, a lot of the things in the film that people mentioned, like, you just knew someone locally that did hair. That's kind of how you did it. Someone went off to like Manchester or London or Birmingham and got the hair, and then they bring it, and then, yeah, you just spend the day in someone's house. But yeah, so Ebony's was really like the only salon. But I think growing up, we didn't have that much money to go and get hair done. So it was
No.
basically a friend of a friend who could do some braids or something like that. And the other one was Flicks on High Park Street. That was one I went to
Mm,
quite a lot. And that was a mixed family. I'm sure the woman who set that up was white, but had mixed kids. But that was another place that was like a bit of a hub for the community, constantly active. I think more so than Ebony's. Ebony's was ran by a Nigerian lady, so it was quite, you went in, you got your hair done. It was,
mm,
you just got your hair done and went type thing. Whereas I don't know. Flicks was a bit more scouse in the way it was like, girls coming in to get the hair done to go out, a lot
mm.
louder and sort of rowdier. I think Flicks is still there as well. But yeah, it's it's never it's never really been a massive sort of scene in Liverpool, I'd say, only in recent years, and social media and things like that help. But also groups like the Goddess Project, run by Natalie Denny and Dominique Walker, which is basically like a WhatsApp group, with loads of women from Liverpool, but Black women who have moved to Liverpool, and there's lots of knowledge, shared on that. There's often been conversations about, what hair products to use, what
Mm.
are the local salons, who are the local hairdressers, um, and it is obviously about getting your hair done, but then also about community
Yeah.
and creating that, and that's kind of the beauty of it. um, Pun not intended, but that within that process are kind of establishing yourself in a place, and yeah, getting that sense of family if you haven't got that around you. And yeah, I think I've just trailed off a little bit, have
No,
I?
don't worry.
No, love it.
I was thinking before, as somebody brought up in a hairdressing shop. So my mum opened that shop long before I was born. And my dad didn't want me to be taken there because he had this perception I'd get covered in hair clippings. Um, but my mum was very entrepreneurial too. So often they are, they'll look around their community and go, what's the trend that I'm quite interested in trends. So my mum noticed in the suburb that we lived in that weight loss was a big trend. So alongside the hairdressing, she started introducing weight loss gimmicks. One was called the Thermo Slim, and you rolled up in a hot blanket, and then you were supposed to lose inches.
Mm.
Oh, wow.
I know. One was called the toning tables, so they just moved your limbs around. They were a machine. So you could go and have your hair done and then go on a machine that moved your limbs. She did keep fit in there. We had a jacuzzi in the shop. So what I, as a child being brought up in this environment, lots of, when you were saying you wanted to ignite that sense of being in the hairdressers in your film, Ivy. I sensed that too myself. It brought back that feeling for me of being in this environment with people talking, and it actually made me more shy. I felt like everyone knew my business, everyone knew when things were happening.
Yeah, that's it. No,
So I was just saying, wasn't I, that in my experience of being raised in this mad environment, everybody knew my business. My mum was always doing side hustles. For a while, she sold knickers and bras. Don't know why. Earrings, the jacuzzi. We obviously always had beauty going on, waxing, massage. She was big on the sunbeds. So it was really about going into this space and feeling something. Maybe you might have felt fine, but if you felt a bit down in the dumps, she was like, "Come on, love, get yourself on that," and she'd be, washing your hair. It was all about touch and love. And we had people there from babies like me to very old ladies. We had quite a few men who she'd known since the 60s who'd come and have perms and stuff. And she kept secrets, but they would tell her things about themselves that maybe they didn't tell anybody else. So there was something about the environment that was the nurturing of it. It was sort of informal nurturing, but I was thinking when you guys were talking that, if you are from a culture like, if you're from Nigeria, for example, and you come to a place like Liverpool or Belfast, and there's literally nowhere, because hair is so specific as well, isn't it? The texture specific things. You can't just go anywhere, for different hair types. And so if you go somewhere from elsewhere in a diasporic way, and you're a woman or just anyone who wants to have their hair done, you're sort of missing that touch, isn't it? It's like a touch poverty or whatever you'd call it, where you've lost that thing because you've gone elsewhere. So that's why it's really important, those pioneers that you guys are talking about, that they, yeah.
I think 100%. I remember even, way before any of this had started and I was just a student. Um, there was month, I think probably a year. I'd basically wait until summer break to go home and get my hair done. But in the midst of that, well, you're missing something, aren't you? Like exactly what you said, Laura. But it was this idea of even just the kind of education. My mom was never a hairdresser, I'll tell you that for a fact. Love her, but it was simplest thing that she could probably do, which was really bad for the hair. It's damaged. They're still kind of damaged today, but was like relaxing and using relaxers constantly, because she just didn't know how to do hair. And that was the easiest thing that she could do for us. Probably wasn't the best, but anywho, going back and actually being able to reconnect with Marie, and there's another woman called Awa, but she based her salon at home. She just lived down the kind of the road from my mother's, but it was that idea again of just having there was no one there that was Ugandan.
Yeah.
But the only thing that connected us all was again this idea around community, but also just being around women and being able to talk like women. and not having to be, kind of not necessarily silenced, but certain things women talk about and the certain things men talk about. Again, I can only imagine what a barber's like. I've never
Oh
been in
yeah.
one. I want to go to one.
Mm.
It's that whole thing that is, I think, really important. Also just important for your little ones. Like, I don't think I would have helped. I mean, my parents are really good in terms of educating us our own kind of background in our culture and how important it is. But I think also without these spaces, you're kind of reminded about that and you're taught that that's a really important and significant thing.
Mm.
And again, if it's not for these spaces, um, maybe yeah, I think they're really important to us all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
And it's a way of being witnessed, isn't it? And being you're important, your particular
Yeah.
characteristics are important. I can remember thinking my mum was quite harsh with people sometimes, like hairdressers can be harsh. They kind of have to be. If you go in and say, I want this wild hairdo, and they're like, you're just not going to suit it, they just tell you. Like, or, people would go in with bad haircuts and she'd be like, this looks like it's been cut with a knife and fork. And I'd be like, how, how rude, but I suppose it's that being witnessed and the honesty behind
Mm.
it, that's very special
Mm.
for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were you going to say something, Janaya?
Oh no, I was just thinking the same. I agree, and I think in those type of spaces as well, especially for women, or as you say, anybody who wants to be in a salon, um, that it is like about witnessing, isn't it, and sharing shared experiences. Because I
Mm.
imagine if a salon is in a very particular community, then there's probably issues that women are experiencing that are very similar to each other,
Mm.
you know. And I think especially in a kind of Liverpool context, the idea of beautifying yourself, when you haven't really got much aspiration or opportunity for anything else. I think
Mm.
in working class sort of towns and cities, that idea of beauty and fashion and things like that become really important because yeah, I always remember Arthur Dooley, the sculptor, who was very kind of Scouse, communist white guy. But he talked about like the culture in Liverpool where we like live for the weekend
Mm.
because we've got this history of like casual labor, not much prospects. The biggest thing is like the weekend, and it's that whole Scouse thing as well of like wearing your rollers, outside. I don't see it as much anymore.
Yeah.
Every now and again, but back in the heyday, it was like velour tracksuit, wasn't it, with the hair and rollers, but it's like announcing to the world, like you've got somewhere to be. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm going out later, type of thing.
Oh
And
yeah. And in
yes,
my mum's shop, they all used to smoke ciggies, back in the 80s and 90s. They'd be like, psh, with the hairspray, psh, smoking ciggies.
thinking earlier on in the conversation, it's all like it is performance, isn't it? Like, do you know what I mean? I could imagine it very much like a scene from a play, and someone bursts in with some drama. Do you know, you could have like a sitcom, couldn't you? Well, Desmond's, you could have, it was just
Yeah.
a barbers, but you could have like a sitcom, based in that situation. It's all performance, isn't it? Even down to like getting your hair done and your makeup and nails as well. It's like a massive thing now, isn't it? That yeah,
Yeah.
everybody gets the nails done. I was saying to Laura, I was like, I don't know whether I should start getting my nails done
But
Yeah.
because,
that,
but it's
do you know what?
yeah,
It's a bit of you, isn't it? It's like I don't I think as well because I'm always working really messy with my hands. So I struggle a little bit in terms of like care.
Mm.
But I started to get my nails done for the simple thing that I just want to rebel against the fact that I always have cuts. My nails are always chipped. They're either pulled off by some sort of metal contraption. Like I am going to get my nails done at least once
Yeah,
every 2 months, whatever it is,
Yeah.
just to rebel against that.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
make it like you said, like ritualistic, like just make it, yeah. It's kind of like a performance. I was
Yeah.
saying to my friend does them as well, and I was saying to her, I feel like a brand new girl. Should we call these something today? And then I came up with some like fiery name. But it is, it's that it's a ritual performance. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like taking away,
yeah,
putting on. It's like sort of removing and bringing back, cutting bits off,
yeah.
putting new bits
Hmm.
on, or
So,
whatever it is you're doing, waxing bits off. It's a kind of, I mean, we could talk about, I feel like I'm going to get locked in the Bluecoat. We could talk about this for hours. It's so interesting. Is there anything you want to finish on? I was kind of going to ask you guys what your relationship is like with your own hair, but do you think that that'll take us a long time to talk about? I will say my mum would roll in a grave because unfortunately she's passed away. She'd roll in a grave if she saw my lack of time spent on my hair.
yeah, I think mine now, it's been a long journey, but I think it's been a long time now where I don't really, process it any, well, I used to relax it obviously a lot when I was younger, but I've not done that for a long time. And I'm very like kind of basic now, just make sure it's well conditioned. Yeah, and that's it really. Um, yeah, I'd say I'm at a good place. My relationship with my hair is okay.
What
Oh,
about
that's
you,
amazing to
Ivy?
hear. I'd say that I've had an awakening, I'd say. I spoke about my mum relaxing my hair a little bit earlier, and I pretty much followed that through to early 20s and had a massive realization just through, health and things, developing health issues that could be related to said relaxing hair. I'm not
Yes.
going to say too much. That, I do need to take care of my hair, but again, spoke a little bit about my sister, and her hair is absolutely super healthy. She really kind of embraces her hair, and she's taught me to obviously not kind of keep those same kind of repetitive things that we were doing that would damage our actual hair. So I'm getting there, and but I think I'm just trying to do that healthily. So stopping the relaxing and again. Allowing my hair to be when I need it to be, but it's completely damaged at the minute. So
It looks
we move.
luscious and gorgeous.
We
Yeah.
move.
Sometimes that's all that matters.